Repairing a 5-inch gauge Modelworks Pannier tank, part 8. Cleaning the mechanical lubricator components in a tub of cellulose thinners, also known as lacquer thinner. Once all of the parts are clean, I reassemble the pump, and before refitting the pump, I modify the mounting method. Health and safety to start with, cellulose thinners or lacquer thinner must only be used in a very well ventilated environment and try not to touch it. Apparently it can be absorbed by skin and you really don't want that to happen. I'm using a small pair of pliers to hold the parts and a toothbrush to clean them. As I'm in my second workshop, which is built onto the house, I need to keep the fumes down to a minimum. I left all the parts in this plastic food container overnight. And when I've finished cleaning all the parts, I will put the lid back on the container to keep the fumes inside it. The cellulose thinners had done its stuff. The paint literally fell off the parts. All that was left was a bit of primer that I had to scrub off with the toothbrush. A very easy job. Cellulose thinners is not normally this colour. I've reused this quite a lot of times for degreasing and paint removal. After being used so many times, it has quite a high oil content now. For the final part of the cleaning job, I'm using a piece of Scotch-Brite. I need to clean the inside of the tank also, and to do this I'm using a long, stiff paintbrush. As soon as I'd finished doing this, I put the lid back on the tub of cellulose thinners, and here it is at the back of the bench. For now anyway. The parts are looking a whole lot better than they did originally. Now it's time to look towards assembly, but before I do that I need to take off this part. Inside the tank it is the pump cylinder, and outside the tank it is the banjo union connection. I use the socket on the inside of the tank, and as you've just seen, a spanner on the outside. Here is the internal mechanism in detail. It's very simple. It's a piston in a cylinder with a hole in the side of the cylinder. This allows oil from the tank to be sucked into the cylinder. There's a spring-loaded ball valve at the bottom of the cylinder. That's why the oil is sucked in through the hole in the side of the cylinder. Then it's pushed out by causing the ball to lift from the seat, and as soon as the piston starts to go in the other direction, the ball prevents the oil from coming back in, and the cycle just repeats. I'll show the principle in more detail as I rebuild this pump. I'm fitting the centre cylinder assembly and the banjo union using Loctite 542. This is thread sealant, not retainer. I have a socket screwdriver with a ratchet attachment on the inside of the tank, and as always I'm tightening the nut using my Barco spanner. After assembling the parts, I applied some oil to the cylinder. At this stage it is very important to fit the stainless steel ball, immediately followed by fitting the spring. Then, whilst holding the banjo union in position with my Barco spanner, I tighten the hexagon cap on the end. The next part of the job is to fit the O-ring seals. I checked them and they were serviceable and reusable. The O-rings both fit into recesses in their individual collars. Why is there an Allen grub screw in the collar in between the clutch and the tank? I think this is to reduce the end float on the shaft. Refitting the eccentric onto the shaft is quite fiddly, but a simple enough job. There's just enough room to get an Allen key to clamp the eccentric firmly to the shaft. Assuming that the collars and the eccentric were initially clamped to the shaft firmly, I'm a bit concerned that the clutch is faulty. It's okay at the moment, but when the pump is connected to the eccentric rod from the eccentric on the front axle that drives the pump, I think there's going to be a problem because there is no clearance whatsoever between the operating arm from the eccentric and one of the frame stretchers. This is just bad design. It's just another thing that needs putting right to improve what should be a good design but is not. Still, the engine looks good on the outside. Here I'm testing the pump and it's looking encouraging. As I rotate the clutch, a very small amount of oil comes out of the banjo union at every revolution. I'm being very thorough with this job. It's vital that this pump works. The next part of the job is a bit of hooliganism. I'm modifying the floor of the cab. The original design of the mounting means that whenever you want to work on the pump, you need to take off the banjo union and lose the spring and the stainless steel ball. By turning the hole in the footplate into a slot, I will not need to remove the banjo union to fit the pump. After drilling the hole in the footplate next to the original hole, I enlarged it with a 1/4-inch drill bit. Initially, I used a needle file in an attempt to file the holes into a slot, but I don't think my lifespan is going to be long enough. Instead, I used a small drum sander in my Proxon motor tool. I have loads of these. I bought a box full of them from a local supermarket in the centre aisle. They're not very good quality and they don't last long at all, so it's a good opportunity to get rid of some of them and elongate the hole at the same time. I went through 4 drum sanders before I managed to elongate the hole, but now it's looking okay. I do need to finish it off with a grinder though, both to shape the slot and deburr the edges. After destroying the 4th sanding drum, I thought I would try a different method. I used a grinder, and this was okay. It was a little bit on the fine side and it got very hot indeed. But eventually I had a slot, not exactly a perfect slot, and I'm going to tidy it up. And for this I'm using a different type of grinder. This small grinder was good for 2 reasons. It allowed me to reshape the slot and deburr the edges. After I'd deburred everything, I tried the pump in place. After using a paintbrush and now a cloth, I cleaned the area thoroughly. Here's the pump sat in position, ready to be bolted down. And unlike the bolts originally used to fasten the pump to the footplate, I'm going to use machine screws. At this stage I was quite pleased with the job, but I didn't realise how much more there was to do. I picked up a handful of 6BA bolts from my box of 6BA bolts in the main workshop, and this is what I had left after I fitted the pump to the footplate. Now I'll be able to use a screwdriver to hold the bolts while I fit the 4 nuts from underneath. That is it for this episode. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thanks for watching, and I hope you found it useful. Please take the time to visit my Mainsteam Models website and click on the section of the website that says Video Playlists. And by doing that, you can find other videos that you may like to watch. And by using the playlists, you can actually watch the videos back to back.